𝓥𝓲𝓫𝓱𝓪, and today I'll discuss the 6th and last chapter of Class 10th Geography. And the chapter that we have here for today is Lifelines of National Economy. Now, lifelines of national economy. Now, we are studying about geography. Then, why are we going to discuss about the national economy? Are we going to talk about economy in geography? No, we aren't. Actually, this chapter is about lifelines of national economy. Now, as all of you know that there is national economy in our country, but for that we need to have some lifelines as well. How that national economy runs, we are going to discuss in this chapter that is connected with geography. So, in this chapter we're gonna look at the lifelines of national economy. Now, in the previous chapter we saw that production of goods or the manufacturing of goods is very important for the pace of development. Now, suppose you are the consumer. As all of you know that you are the consumer and you have a lot of needs for your daily life. Now, some of them are present at your immediate surroundings, but some of your needs are met to you from a very far place, and that takes place due to transportation. So you could say that moving of manufactured products or items from the supply location to demand location takes place due to transportation that facilitates the necessities of the need of transportation. Now, you could say that for the pace of development we need to have trade and transport as well. As all of you know that transportation takes place due to traders. Now, traders are the one who do the work of transportation, who are responsible for the work of transportation. So you could say that for the pace of development, trade and transport, production of goods and services as well as their transportation from the supply location to consumer location is very, very important for the development of our country. Now, transport that takes place on the three major domains of the earth, that are land, air and water, and thus we have three kinds of transport as well, that are land transport, air transport and water transport. Now, you know what, that today the world has been converted into a large village due to efficient means of communication. Now, communication also plays a very important role for the development, for the pace of development. Now, today India is linked to the rest of the world despite its vast size, plurality in linguistic matters and diversity due to the communication, due to efficient means of communication. Thus, you could say that the trade, transport and communication are complementary to each other. And we could say that if you're gonna look at some examples, then it will be the trade, transport, the radio, newspapers, magazines are the one things that connect the world to each other, that connect the countries, that connect the people to each other. So you could say that they are very, very important for the pace of development. Now, trade and transport that were restricted to a limited space, but now they have been reached to even the extreme parts of our country. So in this chapter we will look about the means of transportation, means of communication and some international trade, tourism as a trade, and you could say that these are the lifelines of national economy. As there is development, GDP will rise and that will rise to the national economy as well. So you could say that these are the lifelines of national economy, and that is connected with geography, and we are discussing in this chapter. So let's start this chapter with the means of transportation. Now, if we look at the transportation, means of transport, then they can be converted into land, water and air transport. Now, in air transport we have firstly roadways. Now, firstly in land transportation, firstly we have roadways. Now, as all of you know that India that has one of the largest roadways in the world, aggregating about 56 lakh kilometers, and you could say that there are many roads in our country, aren't there? And even our country is very large, so it's obvious that there will be large length of road in our country. And you could say that there can be also classification of roadways, but you know what, that roadways are still preferred in our country. Like, if we compare the roadways with railways, roadways are much better than the railways because they have many factors, many benefits. First of all, there is low cost of constructing the roads. Secondly, there can be some points about the benefits of the roads. Now secondly, you know what, that road can be built anywhere, like they can be traversed even in the mountains and with gradient slopes as well. After that, road provides a door-to-door services, thus the cost of loading and unloading will be low. After that, we have, like you could say that it serves as a feeder for the railways, railway stations, airports and seaports. Like the roads are responsible for the linking of those to the home places or to doors. So you could say that it also serves as a kind of feeder for the railway stations, airports and seaports. And thus you could say that roads are still comfortable for the people, still better than railways. As you could say that the roads can be built anywhere, even in mountains, even in slopes, and it can take a lot of slopes as well, and low cost of constructing, that is very beneficial for the government. And thus you could say that there are many benefits of roadways. Now there can be some classification of roadways. Now there can be 6 classification of roadways that we are going to discuss. Now first classification could be golden quadrilateral. Now golden quadrilateral superhighways. Now that is the first classification of roadways in our country. Now you know what, that golden quadrilateral, as you could say that they are very kind of big link of roads, like from Delhi to Kolkata, from Kolkata to Chennai, from Chennai to Mumbai, and then again from Mumbai to Delhi. Now if you connect these points, it would seem like a quadrilateral, and that is why it is known as golden quadrilateral superhighways. Now you know what, that these highways are kind of like they are built because for, you could say that for the time for saving the time, and they are maintained by the NHAI, that is National Highway Authority of India. And you know what, that north-south corridor that links the Jammu and Kashmir and Kanyakumari, and east-west corridor that links the Assam and Gujarat, like Porbandar city in Gujarat and Silchar city in Assam. These are also a part of this project. So you could say that it is one of the biggest projects in our country, and it was kind of issued by honorable former Prime Minister of our country, that was Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee. So you could say that it was issued by him. And if we're gonna talk about the golden quadrilateral superhighways, then you could say that mainly they are for saving the time for the advanced cities. You could say that they are linking the advanced cities of our country. As all of you know that Delhi, Chennai, Kolkata, Mumbai, these are one of the advanced cities of our country. So you could say that these are generally to link those advanced cities, and you could say that cover the whole country area. So you could say that is about the golden quadrilateral superhighways. After that, we have national highways. Now national highways. Now these national highways are built to link the extreme parts of the country. You know what, that national highways are maintained by Central Public Work Department or CPWD. You could say that national highways, there are many national highways in our country, and if you go, there are some serial numbers of those national highways as well. Like for example, 𝓒𝓱𝓪𝓾𝓱𝓪𝓷 is the national highway number 1, or NH1. Now if you travel on those highways, you will definitely see the serial number of those highways, and this 𝓒𝓱𝓪𝓾𝓱𝓪 connects Delhi to Amritsar. So you could say that national highways are maintained by CPWD, and they are generally for linking the extreme parts of the country to the central government, to, you could say that, to all the extreme parts of the country, and mainly are built by the government of India. So you could say that is about the national highways. After that, we have state highways. So state highways. Now state highways are built for linking, you could say that, the state headquarters to district headquarters, and they are maintained by State Work Public Department or PWD. Now you could say that you know that there in state there is a capital, or that is also called a state headquarters. So that capital, these highways are for connecting that capital to the district headquarters, and those are called as state highways because they are generally for the purpose of state. So you could say that in our state there are state highways maintained by the, you could say that state public work departments. Now the fourth classification of roadways could be district roads. Now district roads. Now you know what that in state highways are for connecting the capital to district headquarters. Now these district roads are for connecting the district headquarters to the, you could say that, to the local areas, to the local villages, and they are maintained by Zilla Parishad. So you could say that the district roads are those that are used for connecting to the district headquarters. After that we have another classification of roads, that is border roads. Now border roads. Now border roads are maintained by BRO, that is an organization. That is full name of this organization is Border Roads Organization, that is responsible for building the border roads. Now border roads are built, even from the name you can say what they are. Now border roads, they are built in the border areas, in north and northeastern borders. Northeastern border that are connected to China, as all you know that, and north if you have Pakistan. So you could say that in those areas these roads are built, and even in so much you could say bad terrain, in any terrain these are built, and you could say that they are also, because of these roads, even in those areas there is not development. So you could say that is the border roads, that is the classification of roadways. Now besides these 5 classification of roadways, we have another 6 classification of roadways, that is other roads. Now other roads are really other roads, like those remaining roads that connect the village, that connect the localist place to each other, like village, rural areas to each other, are known as other roads. Now other roads are actually the roads that are used for connecting the rural areas, the villages, or even you could say that backward areas. So you could say that those are the other roads that are not generally, you could say that, scheduled. So you could say that these are the 6 classification of roadways. Now that was about the first means of transport, first means of land transport. After that we have railways. So let's discuss about railways with next topic, railways. Now railways is also know that many of you might have traveled in railways at least once in your life. Now you know what that railways, that are the railways, even don't need to explain what they are. Now railways that you could say that they have a long history in our country, about 150 years, and the first railway that started in our country was in 1853, that you could say that they had completed journey from Mumbai to Thane. Like you could say that from Mumbai to Thane it ran, that was a distance of 34 kilometers. So you could say that during that time it was 34 kilometers, and now you could say that railways are for very big purposes. Now railways can be used as multifarious projects, multifarious activities, like many activities are going on in railways. Like for example, people board into the railways for pilgrimage, for business activities, for tourism you could say, and for travel as well. So you could say that they are used for many purposes, and you can use the railways, railway means of transport, for transporting very goods that are in a very large quantities. You could say that railways are meant for bulky transportation. You could say the transportation of bulky goods, you could say that goods in large quantities, and that's also for a long distance as well. Now we discussed that roadways are for short distances, but railways are for long distances. So you could say that is a benefit, that is a good point of railways. Now railways that can be passed through tunnels as well. Now when you sit in a train, now railway train, what would you see that it passes through a tunnel as well when you go to Shimla or in any of those kind of hilly regions. So you could say that in mountainous regions it can't be built, that is why through gaps or through tunnels it passes through. But even in, you could say that not in all the mountains it can be built, as we have discussed. Like in Himalaya region still we can't build the railways, because you know what, that those are hilly areas, and that is why railways cannot be built there. And that was a good point of roadways, as they could be built even in the Himalayas. Now railways are built in those areas that have economic opportunities, good high population density, you could say, and many administrative factors as well, that none of them are present in Himalayan regions, and that is why there are no railways in those regions. But you know what, that in our country, in the northern part, of our country, there is a very good linking of railways. Like you could say that there is a very good benefit of administrative factors, there is very good high population density, and many factors are there. Even in some rivers, you need to build bridges for passing the railways. Still, there is a good connection in our country, in the northern part of the country. You know, the northern, in Uttar Pradesh, in those regions, in Uttar Pradesh, in Uttarakhand, in those regions, there is a very good linking of railways. But you know what, that in Himalayan region, in swamps of Gujarat, and in sandy regions of Rajasthan, in forest tracts of Madhya Pradesh, Odisha, and Jharkhand, still there are no railways. Like they are, but they are in very small quantity. They can't still be built in those areas. But railways still have their good benefits, as they are very helpful in bulky transportation. That is why in our country, railways are the biggest means of transport compared to any other transport. Still, you could say that it faces certain amount of problems, but still people board into trains, don't they? Like even you go to a railway station, there is a lot of crowd. Why is it so? Mainly because they want to travel into that train. Like you could say that train are a cheaper way of transportation as well. But still they have faced a long kind of certain problems, like damaging and thefts in railway trains are seen very much. And what the people do is that they pull the chains, stop the trains, and cause a heavy havoc. And after that, there is a kind of, you could say that, lot of crowd in the trains as well, because people move into the trains without tickets. So you could say that in trains there are still certain number of problems, but still you could say that is the best means of transport, not best, but you could say biggest means of transport compared to any other means of transport. Like it is a hub of a good means of transport. Now after that, inland transport, we have pipelines. Now pipelines, that is also part of land transport with a new arrival. Now it is a new arrival in transportation field. Now you know what, that pipelines that were used for transporting the water from, you could say, one place to another, but now they are used for transporting crude oil, petroleum, natural gases, and those kind of products, natural gas products from, you could say, fields, from natural fields, natural gas fields, petroleum fields, to the refineries, big thermal power plants, and in those regions, you could say that from one place to another, from fields to factories, to fertilizer factories, to refineries, you could say. Now for that purpose, pipelines are now used. Now pipelines, you could say that aren't that much from history, you could say. Like they have a new arrival in our country and are still successful. Like it is very important for the transportation of those materials as well. Now you know what, that even the soil can be transported through these pipelines when they are converted into slurry. So you could say that they are meaningful in those regions as well. Now in our country, there are some certain regions like Allahabad, Bareilly, Mathura. In those regions, there are pipelines, and there are mainly three kind of pipeline networks in our country. Now first is that from upper parts of from upper oil fields of Assam to Kanpur in Uttar Pradesh via Guwahati, Barauni, and Prayagraj. Now it has some branches from Rajgand to Maraigram. After that, you could say that from Barauni to some villages of Assam, and you could say that there are some branches in Assam. The second major network of pipeline in our country is from, you could say that, from Gujarat. You could say from Gujarat from Gujarat to Jalandhar in Punjab. Now you could say that is also one of the major pipeline in our country, and that is via, you could say, Delhi, Mathura, and some, you could say, Visakhapatnam and those regions. After that, third pipeline in our country, we have, you could say that from the region Haldia, you could from Hazari to Uttar Pradesh. You could say from Hazira region to Uttar Pradesh, that is a network, and it has been through via Madhya Pradesh. So you could say that it has some branches in Kota in Rajasthan as well, and in Madhya Pradesh as well. So you could say that from Hazira to Uttar Pradesh, that third pipeline pipeline network is there, and it has some branches in Kota in Rajasthan and some branches in Madhya Pradesh as well. Now that is about the pipelines that has a new arrival on the transportation map of our country. Now we have completed the land transportation. You could say land means of transport. After that we have water means of transport, and in that firstly we have inland waterways. Now inland waterways. Now as all of you know that inland waterways that are navigated through National Inland Waterways Authority of our country. Now inland waterways that are, you could say that they are built on rivers, canals, and those areas, not on the sea or oceans. So you could say that there are many inland waterways in our country as well that account at least for 14,500 kilometers. Out of that, 5,685 kilometers are navigable by the mechanized vessels. Now you know what, that we have a lot of history of waterways, like from land history. You know that even India was discovered through that means of transport. You know what, that we had a long history of seafaring, like sea trade, and there were many sailmen in our country, and that is why even through the waterways India was discovered by Vasco da Gama. So you could say that waterways still has a kind of lot of importance in our country. Now firstly there is about 5,685 kilometers that can be you could say that is navigable by the mechanized vessels, and on the basis of that there are 5 national waterways that are declared national waterways by the National Inland Waterways of our country. Now first national waterway is that the Ganga, you could say Ganga, that lies from Haldia region to Allahabad. Now Allahabad, that has a new name, that is Prayagraj, but in your book, that is old edition, the name is written as Allahabad. So you could say that the Ganga river that lies between Haldia region to Prayagraj, it accounts for 1,620 kilometers, the Ganga river between Haldia region to Allahabad region. After that we have, you could say that after that we have Brahmaputra region from Shahidi region to Dhubri region, that accounts for 891 kilometers. So that inland waterways is about 891 kilometers. After that we have West Coast Canal. Now West Coast Canal that lies in Kerala and accounts for around, you could say that around 288 kilometers, 205 kilometers actually, and it lies in some South Indian cities like Kottayam, Udayamangalam, those cities that are South Indian cities. Now the fourth national waterway is the specified stretches of rivers like Godavari and Krishna, along with the stretches of Puducherry coast as well, that lies in Puducherry, you could say, that is Kankarai coast in Puducherry, and it accounts for 1,078 kilometers. After that, the last national waterway is the specified stretches of Matai river and you could say that that river along with Brahmani river and Mahanadi river. Now you could say that with the delta channels of Mahanadi and Brahmani and Matai river, that is the 5th national waterway that accounts at least for 544 kilometers. So you could say that these are the national waterways, that are the 5 national waterways. Now first one was the Ganga river between Haldia region and Prayagraj region. After that Brahmaputra region between Sahyadri region and Dhubri region. After that West Coast Canal. After that we have specified stretches along with East Coast Canal as well, and after that specified stretches of Matai river along with the delta channels of Mahanadi and Brahmani rivers. So you could say that these are the national waterways, the 5 national waterways of our country. Now you know what, that seaports and national waterways in our country are very, very important. Like they are cheap transport, the cheapest means of transport, and they are helpful in transporting the bulky goods from one country to another country as well. And you know what, that inland, in means of volume of transportation, the inland transportation accounts for 95%, and if we talk about the valley, it is about 68%. So you could say that there are major seaports as well, like we talked about the inland waterways, but from one country to another country, for exporting the materials, the raw materials or the items from our country to another country, we need to have some seaports as well. So let's discuss about with the next means of waterways, that is overseas. Now in overseas we have major seaports. Now for overseas, we have seaports, as all of you know that, and they account for at least 95% of the total transportation in volume. So you could say that there are major 12 seaports and 200 minor that are not they are not notified like they are minor seaports. So there are 12 major seaports in our country. Now first seaport that we're going to discuss about is you could say Kandla seaport in Kutch region in Gujarat. So Kandla seaport in Kutch region of Gujarat, that was the first seaport developed soon after independence to you could say that because there was a lot of loss due to the partition. As all of you know that there was a partition in our country, and due to that the Karachi port of our country was given to Pakistan. As all of you know that Karachi lies in Pakistan, so there was a lot of pressure on Mumbai port. So you could say that is why Kandla port was developed soon after independence to release that pressure from the Mumbai port, as there was a partition in our country, and that lies in Kutch region of Gujarat. Now this port is mainly for the granary imports from this you could say from granary transportation of the stretches belt like Haryana, Rajasthan and Gujarat as well, in those regions where there is a granary. So you could say that from those stretches it does the transportation mainly of the granary. After that, along the western coast, we have many other ports as well. Like for example, we have New Mangalore port for the iron ore export from our country, that lies in Karnataka. So New Mangalore port, that is in Karnataka. After that, we have Malmegaon port in Goa, that is also mainly for the iron ore and is the biggest for the iron ore export from our country. Now about 50% of total export of iron ore is done on that port, that is Malmegaon port in Goa. After that, we have Mumbai as a special, you could say, biggest hub of port. Like it is very spacious and is presented with natural harbor as well. And that is why Jawaharlal Nehru port was also developed to decolonize this port. So you could say that there we have Jawaharlal Nehru port, and after that Mumbai port. So along the west coast, we have New Mangalore port, Malmegaon port, Jawaharlal Nehru port, and Mumbai port, Kandla port as well. So you could say that these are the ports along the west coast. After that, moving along the eastern coast, we do have southeastern coast. I'm talking about the southeastern coast. We do have many ports, many seaports. Like the biggest one, the most important is the Tuticorin. Now Tuticorin, with lot of hinterland and with so much natural harbor, does the cargoes even in neighboring countries like Sri Lanka, Maldives, in those countries. And you could say that Tuticorin is one of the most important port in the southwestern coast of our country. After that, Visakhapatnam is the largest landlocked port in our country. It is ranked just next to the Mumbai port in terms of transportation, you could say transportation and value. After that, along the eastern coast, we have many other ports as well, like Kolkata, that is in the riverine inland port. Riverine inland port means that it is an inland port, and you could say that from river it goes to ship as well, it goes to river seas as well. Like Hooghly river is also that flows in Kolkata, and from that Hooghly river goes into the ocean as well. So you could say that is why it is a kind of inland riverine port that needs a river, that is on a river but goes to sea as well. So you could say that it requires Hooghly river as a prerequisite. So you could say that Kolkata, that is an inland riverine port of our country. And after that, we have Chennai, that is a artificial kind of biggest artificial port of our country. Like you could say that it is also very important and the artificial port of our country. After that, we have another port, that is Kochi port, that was left in the western coast, like that lies in the western coast. And along with the eastern coast, we have another port, that is Paradip port in Odisha. Now Paradip port, that is also one of the most important port in Odisha, generally for the export, you could say for the export of iron ore. And after that, last major port is Haldia port. Now Haldia port was actually developed for releasing the pressure from Kolkata Kolkata port. So you could say that it was for releasing the pressure from the Kolkata port. As all of you know that if there are less ports, then what would happen, that there would be a lot of pressure on those ports for exports and imports. That is why we have these many major ports in our country, and there are some very big, you could say, ports in our country, and they account at least for 95% of total transportation in volume. So you could say that in value it is 68%, in volume it is 95%, and that is about the overseas, like the seaports of our country, and that is we talked about the waterways. Now after this we have the air transport, in which we have domestic and international. And in domestic we have public undertaking and private airlines. Now firstly let's discuss about the airways. Now you know what, that airways are the most kind of comfortable kind of means of transport. Like we discuss about some problems of passing through the mountains, dense forest, but airlines can just pass it easily, can't they? Like they have to fly over the sky, so they don't have that much problems like the roads or railways have. Like they don't have to pass through the mountains, they don't have to make tunnels for the airlines and those kind of things. So airlines are expensive. Like you could say that airlines are really expensive, but they are comfortable, and you could say that kind of best way of transportation in means of in terms of you could say that in terms of facilities and time. Like time is also a matter to us. Like time is precious to us, isn't it? Like you could say that this air transport, what happens that it will take a lot of less time, and you can reach from here to Europe or to any other country. So you could say that airways are a very good way of transport. Now in airways we have the domestic and international. International are those like from one country to another country. Like if I have to move from here to Myanmar or to Maldives, that would be international airlines. And after that we have the domestic airlines for our country, and in which we have public undertakings and private airlines. Now public undertakings that are owned by the government and are for the peoples, you could say, and private airlines are actually, you could say, that owned by an individual. Like now Indian Airlines was bought by 𝓒𝓲𝓫. Recently the airlines, Indian Airlines, Air India was bought by Ratan Tata, who is the owner of Tisco, Tata Steel in our company. So you could say that for that purpose you could say that there are private airlines as well as public undertakings. Now you know what, that airline facilities in our country are not with the reach of common people. It is only with special provisions that in northeastern states we have some special provisions for these airlines to move to reach the common people. So you could say that airlines are also beneficial, but you could say that there are some expensive as well if you want to move from one place to another with private takings. So you could say that is about the airlines. They were kind of comfortable and kind of those kind of facilities that has a lot of facilities and doesn't have any problem. Yeah, thus there is one thing that you'll have to check the weather, but it will take less time, it will take less, like there is a lot of thing in airplanes like aircrafts and airlines. So we talked about the transportation, three types of transportation: land transportation, air transportation and water transportation. Now we talked about the trade, transportation, communication. Trade that we discussed in the last chapter about the manufacturing industries. Transport we discussed. Now comes the communication part of our chapter. So with the next topic, let's continue, that is communication. So communication. Now you know what, that since as long, you could say that since human appeared on the earth, there is always a means of communication between them. But with the pace of change, there has been a rapid change in the modern times for the means of communication as well. Now there can be personal communication and mass communications with the help of radio, televisions, films and those kind of things. So you could say that there's a lot of communication in our country as well. There are a lot of means of communication as well. Now what do you mean by communication? Now communication, you could say that from transmitter to receiver's position that data is sent. Like that is also transportation of data from transmitter to receiver's place without any physical movement. Well, there are, like, you have to do some things but not that physical movement. You know what, that with the help of communication we are connected to England. Even the news of England, the match that is the cricket match that is is being played in England or in any other country like in South Africa or West Indies, we can just watch it on our TV, can't we? So you could say that that is because of the communication with a lot of mass communication. Now you know what, that the Indian postals are the largest in the world, and you could say that cards and envelopes are considered as the first class mail, and that is why they are airlifted with the help of covering the land and air transport. And after that, books, registers and parcels and newspapers are considered as a second class mail. You could say that they are transported with the help of, you could say that, covering the land transport and the water transport. And for transporting those things to the villages, towns and the local cities of our country, there are 6 channels, you could say 6 postal channels in our country, that are Metro channel, Green channel, Bulk mail channel, Business channel, Rajdhani channel. And you could say that these are those kind of channels that are made for the transportation of those things. So you could say that that is about the personal communication. And after that, we have a service of STD as well, that is subscriber trunk dialing. Now you know what, that excluding the urban cities, because there isn't that much of need of STD in urban cities. Now excluding the urban cities, 2/3 of all the villages have a setup of STD. Now you could say that there is a uniform facility of STD 24 hours, and that is why government is making more and more provisions for STD service to all the villages of our country. Now you know what, that STD is a very good facility in our country for the people of rural areas. After that, you could say that for mass communication in India, there is a lot of things. Like for entertainment, we have films, entertainment programs, shows, channels, TV, television, radios, magazines, periodicals, those kind of newspapers. You could say that books, those are the means of mass communication, and they are so much in our country. Now you could say that India provides a lot of entertainment. Like for example, we have channels, national channels. Like for radio, we have All India Radio, or what we call Akashvani in Hindi, you could say that with which that podcasts many kind of things, that news, it keeps us updated with the latest news and those kind of things, and that is provided with the cultural languages, cultural news, and with so many languages, and that is also different in different areas. Like if you move from one region to another, now in that another region you will listen in AIR, like All India Radio, the different news of that region, not your own region. So you could say that in different regions, according to different cultures, according to different languages, according to different news, it has been set up. After that, as a national channel, we have Doordarshan, or DD, what we call. Now Doordarshan, provides a lot of shows, you could say, for entertainment, for news, different kind of programs, and those so many things for all the different age groups of people. So you could say that is a cultural, it is a national program, national channel of our country. So you could say that there are a lot of ways of mass communication in our country as well, and you could say that is why you could say that a lot of India's link to the rest of the world due to its mass communication, due to its means of communication. And that is also very important, isn't it? Like if you don't have a communication, then how will you interact with each other without any physical movement? Like if a friend is living far away from you, how will you interact with him? Without communication, that can't be possible, can it be? So you could say that for mass communication, we have a lot of facilities. For personal communication, we do have a lot of facilities. So you could say that is what is communication. After that, the next topic we have here is international trade. Now, international trade. Now, trade is often the exchange of goods and services between two people. The international trade is the exchange of goods from two countries. Like the trade between two countries is known as international trade. Now, international trade, you could say that in India there is two things. Like in all countries there are two meters, parameters, you could say, that are export and import. Now, import the goods and services that are you could say that are called in our country, that are sold in our country, and you could say that export, that are sold from our country to another country. So you could say that these are two important parameters of international trade. And and the rate of development is on the basis of the difference between the export and import rate of a country or for a country, especially if we are talking about. Now, if the rate of export is good, that it is favorable to national economy, it is favorable for the development of country. But if the rate of import is more than the rate of export, that it would be unfavorable to the national economy. As also we know that if you are selling more things and getting less things, it's obvious, isn't it, that you will be in a loss. So you could say that is why every country tries to have more and more export compared to import. And after that, if we talk about export and import, that India exports to other commodities. The commodities that it exports to other countries are you could say agriculture and allied products, jewelry and chemical related products, those kind of things. And it imports materials like crude and petroleum products, and you could say that we have gems and jewelry as well, chemical related products as well, and kind of you could say that those kind of things like agriculture and allied products as well, and machines as well. So you could say that a lot of things are imported in our country that we will have to decrease. Now you know what, that resources are limited to a place, like resources have a barrier of place, and that is why every country has export and import. It does need to have an export and import, otherwise how can it survive in this era, like if it doesn't have enough resources for its survival. And that can be seen through because there is a barrier of space, land as well. Now international trade we are talking about, you could say that India is having good, but it still needs to decrease the import in our country. Now you know what, that if we talk about the international trade, then there is a good trade of information technology from our country. Like information technology of our country is very good in these things. Now the next and last topic of this chapter is tourism as a trade. Now tourism as a trade. Now tourism, as all people like that. Tourism, you know what, that in our country 15 million people are promoted, are engaged in the activities of tourism. 15 million, you could say that is quite a lot of number. Like for many of countries, it is just their population, and we have 15 million people just in tourism business. How far it would go? Now you know what, that tourism, there is a lot of tourism, like for the purpose of heritage tourism, ecotourism. We have, you could say that adventure tourism, business tourism, cultural tourism, lot of tourism there are. And you know what, that India is also a very good place as a tourist place. Now there are a lot of things to see. You could say that there are a lot of things, there are a lot of places to see. Like we have Taj Mahal, the wonder of the world, one of the 7 wonders of the world. We have many historical forts, and we have many things in our country. We have natural phenomena in our country as well. So you could say that for the cuisine. And you know what, that tourism is also a good way of promoting the local cuisines, local handicrafts to the tourism. You could say that those are promoted in tourism business. And you could say that there is a kind of, you could say that in our country, the tourism business makes a lot of money from the foreigners, you could say, who have come in our country for tourism business. So you could say that tourism, that is also very important for the development of a country, and a country like ours, it does need to have. So you could say that is what the tourism, and that also acts as a trade, because even for tourism we need to have money, don't we? So that tourism acts as a trade. And you know what, in 2016-17 in some of the newspapers it was shown that India is the 4th travel destination of the world. Now Italy, Australia, those are the 1st and 2nd. The 4th one is India. So you could say that there are a lot of destinations over the world. We have Switzerland, France, Thailand, but India is also one among them. So you could say that is tourism as a trade. Now this is all in this chapter. Now we discussed about the means of transport, in which we saw land transport, in which there were roadways and railways. In roadways we had golden quadrilateral superhighways, the border roads, the other roads, the state highways and national highways. After that we had district head roads as well. After that, for railways we saw that it faces certain amount of problem, but it's still preferred by many people. After that, water transport, that could be inland navigations and overseas, like seaports. There are 12 major ports of our country along the western coast and the eastern coast. Now you know what, that in waterways, the total coastline of our country is about 7,516.6 kilometers. That is also one of the important points you should learn. After that, we discussed discuss about the airlines. Now there is a question that might be rising in your mind, that why these facilities, why airlines, why air transport is preferred, like it has provisions in northeastern states. You know what, that in those states there are dense forests, there is a lot of chances of floods as well. There are flood prone areas. That is why there is a lot of facilities of helicopter rescue, helicopters and air transport, and there are some companies that provide that too. So that is why there are. After that we discussed about the communication, the means of transport, and after that we talked about the international trade and tourism as a trade. So that is all we discussed in this chapter. I have covered all the topics and subtopics, and now our geography has been closed down, hasn't it? And now the last subject of this class SST, that is economy. I'll start it soon. So stay tuned for upcoming videos. Thank you very much.